Hello and welcome to the Quick News Daily Podcast, where we give you all the latest news in under 20 minutes. No fluff, no filler, just news made for the 21st century. It is Wednesday, June 10th, and we have a lot of news to get to again. It seems like these last 2 weeks have been insane compared to before when I was saying like, oh, it's a slow news day. You know, every day it felt like. Well, slow by 2020 standards, you know. But now we have a lot to get to, but first I want to talk about something on the Quick News Daily front. A quick update about us. I was lucky enough to be able to join the PODGO platform today. And it's a platform that connects small podcasts with advertisers so that we can start getting some return on our investment as we grow because, I mean, to get advertisers, you have to have thousands and thousands of downloads per episode. It's absolutely crazy. So it's really great to have a small podcast ally out there and a platform that really fills a need. So thank you to them. I am proud to be a member of them now, and you will be hearing probably our first ad tomorrow for PODGO itself. So just a heads up there, and just want to give them a little plug to start. But let's get into the news, shall we? I want to open with this clip here, which is Joe Biden speaking at the funeral for George Floyd yesterday in Houston in a pre-recorded video message. So let's take a listen.
Well, today, now is the time, the purpose, the season to listen and heal. Now is the time for racial justice. That's the answer we must give to our children when they ask why. Because when there is justice for George Floyd, we will truly be on our way to racial justice in America. And then, as you said, Gianna, your daddy will have changed the world. May God be with you, George Floyd, and your family.
Again, Joe is just showing his ability to empathize with people and basically just act like a human being. I think fundamentally that's why Joe is exactly the person we need to be president right now. Sure, almost all the candidates for Democrat could have been, anybody a rock could have been a better president during this time. But I think all of Joe's life experiences have put him on another level. Like I keep saying, a level of loss that I hope not a lot of us have to go through. And certainly not a lot of us have been through at this point in our lives. You know, whether you're my age or 30 or 40, he has been through a lot. It's different to have Joe Biden saying this sort of thing than, say, like Mayor Pete. You know, I love Mayor Pete. Don't get me wrong, but it's different. It's different. I mean, this is the guy who got the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Barack Obama. I mean, how many people can say that? But speaking of different, how Joe Biden and Trump acted yesterday clearly laid out the contrast between the two. Trump sent the presidency to a new low, and I just kind of get sick of saying that every day it feels like. But remember when the presidency meant something? When they were supposed to be who we looked up to lead us through dark times like these? Well, yesterday was not that, because Trump tweeted out a conspiracy from OANN. It's like One America News Network, a cable channel that is farther right and even more crazy than Fox News, if you can believe it. It's like Alex Jones and InfoWars, but on TV. And this conspiracy theory that they're pushing, that Trump just parroted, said that the 75-year-old man in Buffalo, who was shoved down for no reason by the police and fell backward and hit his head on the concrete and he was like bleeding out of his ear. That guy, you know, you've probably seen the video. It's horrific. It's hard to watch because the sound his head makes when it hits the ground. But their theory is, I cannot believe this, that he was an Antifa secret agent using a device to black out police communications. No, this is not a joke. There's no punchline coming. That's just how desperate and flailing Trump is right now. His polls are awful, and his campaign probably has even more polls that we don't see that must be showing how bad it really is for Trump. Again, I know it seems like we see crazy stuff from Trump all the time, especially from Twitter, and we just sort of get numb to it, but we can't. I mean, my God, this is out of control now. I really wish his cabinet would have the guts to use the 25th Amendment, which you may have heard of before. It says that if a majority of the cabinet sign off saying that they do not believe the president is fit for the job, they can remove him from office. And I think we've kind of been at this point for a while, but now it's especially relevant. Now, that would be extreme, and it would probably cause his supporters to freak out and start claiming like a deep state coup by Hillary Clinton and Obama or something. But we're in unprecedented times, so it's kind of now or never for that amendment. George Bush used it when he got a colonoscopy, so Dick Cheney was president for like a couple hours a couple times, which is kind of a scary thought, but somehow still not quite as scary as Trump. Now our next story might be a disturbing look at our future if this Trump paranoia, or more accurately Trump's paranoia, and the Republicans' paranoia continues. Yesterday in Georgia they had the primary election, and there were these huge lines to vote, people waiting in excess of 7 hours. In what parts of the state do you think that this was in? Oh, it's in largely minority areas. Strange. Now today, the Republican Secretary of State of Georgia, who is in charge of elections in the state of Georgia, announced an investigation into why this happened. But, I guess I'm not necessarily at a point to be able to trust that is going to be a fair look at what happened or what went wrong. And one of the CEOs of the counties down there where this happened, and it's kind of weird that they have CEO as the title for a public position. But anyways, he's saying that the Secretary of State should actually be investigated because, it's under his control. So he obviously had a part to play in it. So how can he investigate? It's like letting the robbers investigate themselves, So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. But again, this could be a disturbing look at the future if they're allowed to do this in November. Because let's just face it, folks, the GOP knows they cannot win a fair election when everyone votes. That's why in Wisconsin they made us vote during a pandemic, and they got thumped at the ballot box. So it doesn't even work necessarily, but something like this might. So we have to keep up the pressure on them, keep it under scrutiny. There's so much going on right now, but this could be huge, and we can't let it happen in November. Our next story shows us that the plot is thickening in Minnesota. There is a report out today that said the legal team for Derek Chauvin, the man who murdered George Floyd, was in negotiations with the Hennepin County Attorney's Office for a plea bargain. Like they're in plea bargain negotiations. Now, it doesn't say what the negotiations would be, but that is just a terrible, terrible look to be negotiating with him. Like that would have sparked even more outrage because it would have been, they didn't even charge him harshly at first. So it wouldn't have been even that weak stuff that they tried to put on him in the initial arrest before the state attorney general took over. So thank goodness it's out of these folks' hands. Unfortunately, our next story shows that there is a new spike, basically a second wave of the coronavirus happening. And coincidentally, the biggest spikes are happening in the states that opened up earliest, like almost 2 weeks ago. So, man, who could have saw that coming except everyone with a brain? Now, Trump is trying to say that, it's just because we're testing more. That's the only reason the numbers are increasing, but no. I mean, yes, of course you're going to have more positive results when you test more, but Dr. Vin Gupta, he is a global health policy expert who contributes to NBC News and MSNBC, states that the data I've seen from Verizon and even Apple and Google suggests that people are moving a lot in states like California and Arizona and North Carolina. And those happen to be 3 of the 6 states where you're seeing the biggest spike of cases. Okay, one, that must be some cell phone data or something, but that's kind of like a sort of scary thought there. Truly Big Brother looking over your shoulder at you. But more importantly, we just have to keep listening to the experts because the second wave is basically already here, especially in these states. So it was a bad idea to reopen so early. And I hope these protests don't, send the numbers even higher. It's going to be like the 1-2 punch of coronavirus, then the protests and all the outrage from that. And then there's like this third punch, which is the coronavirus second wave. So again, keep up your social distancing. Stay cautious. It's hard, but don't give up yet. Stay safe. You gotta stay safe out there. And our last story today. The headline reads, Louisville police investigating sexual assault accusations against officer in Breonna Taylor shooting. 2 women have come forward to claim that they were sexually assaulted by an officer involved in the fatal shooting of Breonna Taylor. You remember that's the one I mentioned a couple days ago with basically the legal breaking and entering, the no-knock warrant thing. And these allegations are against Officer Brett Hankison. Oh, man. Really, really bringing shame to Bretts everywhere. Hankison is one of 3 officers who have been on administrative reassignment while an investigation is conducted into the death of Brianna Taylor. But I think the moral of the story here is it's just wild that these people are still out there. Like, it was bad enough that Chauvin was free for 3 days, but, this is going on months now. I'm going to guess it has something to do with a lack of video in that one. It doesn't say here if there was body camera evidence, but you know how those things kind of mysteriously go off when something bad happens that the police don't want to show you? But in any case, something to keep an eye on. A lot of people are still talking about it, keeping her name in the news, which is good. And I heard this morning on Morning Joe, John Meacham, he's a historian. He brought up a comment from Martin Luther King Jr. who said, or maybe it was Reverend Al Sharpton. One of the two brought up the quote from MLK that said, we're a 10-day nation where we only care about stuff for 10 days. So we really, if we do want these change, it's obviously working really well. There's a lot of stuff happening already. So you got to keep it up, and especially these days, if it was a 10-day attention span back then, imagine what it is now. 10 minutes, maybe? Everything just moves so fast, there's so much news. But, again, protests are working. Keep it up, and keep an eye on this story as well, because I suspect the protests, at least in Louisville, will probably go on until these folks are arrested themselves. So in short, what I think you should take away today is there is a coronavirus second wave, it seems like, coming, so keep your social distancing going. Keep those masks on, and just stay safe with your family. Be leery of what happened in Georgia yesterday, those long poll lines. It's voter suppression before our very eyes, so we have to keep the pressure on them to make sure those investigations actually pan out, and that something changes before November, because that cannot happen in Georgia or anywhere else. I'm sure it was a test run for them, and it worked great for them yesterday, but keep the pressure on them. And then, don't fall for the 75-year-old man is a secret agent trying to black out police communications. I think that goes without saying, but, we'll say it anyway. Anyways, that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. You can find us anywhere at Quick News Daily on all social media. Give us a shout out. Give us feedback. There I go again saying us. It's just me. Literally just me. Give me feedback of what you want to see. I added transitions today because I ran a poll on Instagram, and it seemed like a lot of you wanted transitions between news stories, and I don't think I can argue with you. So, feedback does work. It does have an influence on the show, so don't be afraid to reach out. Other than that, stay safe out there, stay vigilant, and I'll be back tomorrow, so talk soon, guys.